Keith Law of The Athletic is here to explain his Twins farm system rankings, but he's not going to say a word until we all get locked on Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite of the Locked On Podcast Network shows, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. I'm co-host David Brown, an MLB writer, a BBWA member, and a Baseball Hall of Fame voter. Please follow me on Twitter at AnswerDaveBrown if you like. You can also find me on Blue Sky at AnswerDave. I'll post there very soon, I promise. It's right on social media bandwidth, okay? Across the cosmos in Great Plains, for me is Brandon Warren, a one-time Twins beat reporter who has watched the club for work and for leisure for 3 decades. Talk smack at Brandon_Warren on Twitter, and simply by screaming Warren into Blue Sky. Here's what's coming up on this podcast. Keith Law is here. He's a writer. He's a reporter. He's a board gamer, as in Clue and Monopoly. He's also a semi-pro chef, I believe. But we're going to focus on his prospecting for The Athletic, which on Tuesday published Keith's rankings for Twins prospects. Before we go there, Brandon, please tell us who, if anybody, is sponsoring this episode of Locked On Twins.
Well, good afternoon, sports fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Gametime, download that app.
Keith Law, what are your first words, Keith? I'm just going to throw you under the bus right now. What's on your mind? What's going on? How you doing?
I can't believe you would do me like that. Monopoly?
Oh, what? I was just trying to relate to people. Friends. I know you're a little more sophisticated than that.
I see you in the press box. I'm going to cut you.
I just didn't want to indicate that you were a board gamer.
He's going to be in St. Louis, by the way.
Bored.
Who is going to be in St. Louis? Not
Davis.
Me. Oh, God.
Davis. I was just trying to give you some of his whereabouts.
Yes. For the Twins opening day, I'll be there. Will you be there in St. Louis?
Oh, is that where they start?
It is.
No. Opening day. Look, I'll probably be doing. I might still be in spring training, depending on when the minor league camps break. More likely, I'll be at a college thing somewhere. That all starts next weekend, right? Today's Tuesday, right?
Yes.
So in 10 days, I'll be at my first college games of the year because they start up on, it's actually Valentine's Day. But it's a reasonably college-y draft too. So my editor sat down, discussed schedule and stuff, and I'm just going to hit college stuff hard early because also it's where all the scouts and the directors will be too. So I'll do that to start out, and then the opening day is like the 7th weekend of the college season. I don't know what time zone I might wake up in at that point, but I won't be at a major league game. I generally don't go to a lot of major league games anymore unless there's a prospect call up. We have other people to do that stuff, and that's kind of not, not that I have any dislike. It's just kind of not the job.
We are. Yeah. Speaking of dislike, we're going to ask you why you dislike the Twins so much. You don't dislike the Twins.
Save it for
I
the
did
comment.
have a question, though, and I promised myself no tangents. But when you scout at a game, where do you go? Where do you sit? What do you do? Do you interact with anybody? Do you sit in the stands? What do you do?
Always sit in the stands. Can't scout from the press box. Never trust a scout in the press box because it's boring. I'll allow that because you won't see me in the stands either. I don't sit in the rain. If I am scouting a pitcher specifically, or if I'm just scouting a lot, I will at least start out behind the plate. And then I move. As the game goes on, I'll move because for scouting a pitcher, I want to watch his pitches from behind the plate to get the hitter's view. And then I'll move up one line or the other to watch his delivery from the open side. Typically, if it's a reliever, I probably just stay put. And then if I'm watching hitters only, I had a game last year when I went up to Somerset to see Portland, who had Marcelo Mayer and Roman Anthony and Kyle Teal, and Christian Campbell didn't play, but ostensibly he was in the lineup. And every hitter I wanted to see who was in the lineup was left-handed. So I could sit just up the third base side, kind of at a perfect open view of the hitters, and literally just sat there the whole game, which was pretty nice because it's very quiet over there too, right? At a minor league game, especially, almost everyone's behind the plate if they can be, or they're way out because they have little kids who want to run around. So they're way up the line. So I think I had a whole section to myself at that point. And do I talk to people? If I see scouts, agents, execs, people I know, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, every once in a while, the reader sees me, and I'm always happy to chat. I might ask them to just hang on a second, right? If like Marcelo Mayer's at the plate, like right now, like give me 1 second to finish, and then I'm happy to chat. But there's plenty of games too where I just kind of don't see anybody. There aren't as many scouts out at games as there used to be. So many teams have cut down on pro scouting, especially. Amateur's different. I show up at an amateur game, especially since I'm typically going to see first rounders or potential first rounders. There's 20 to 30 guys there every time, often more, depending on who I'm seeing and where we are in the season.
Do you ever talk to players in a scouting way?
Mm-hmm.
Does that help you at all?
If I have a specific question, like I don't want to bother players more than anything else, right? They have to deal with media anyway. I don't want to add to that part of their workload. It's not even their main job. So I'm very sensitive to their time. If I have a specific question, though, that can't be answered anywhere else, then I will. Yes, I will generally go through the team or go through the agent and say, okay, I have a specific question. What does he call that breaking ball? Did he change something in his swing? I think I see it, but I'm not sure. There is a player this year who's going to be on, it's not the Twins, but on one of the prospect lists I've had 3 different scouts from other teams tell me that the player has type 1 diabetes. And we're still kind of working through whether I have enough information to say so because the team didn't confirm. And I could reach out to the player on that. I'm not trying to out the guy, but it's relevant to his scouting report is why I would include that kind of information. Otherwise I wouldn't say it because it doesn't matter. As opposed to Garrett Mitchell, for example, where it was kind of public knowledge that he was type 1 diabetic. I think he's type 1. He's diabetic when he was coming out of high school. So there are lots of cases where there's real value in talking to a player. And a handful of times over the 18, 19 years, a player has reached out to me and said, hey, I saw you tweeted, well, not anymore, but back in the past, you were at such and such a game. What do you think? Like, if you ask, I'll give you my honest opinion. You may not like it. But I feel like if somebody's asking, they're saying, yeah, please be honest, even if some of it is critical. So I'm happy to do that. But I just, like I said, they don't need me. They don't need me in their work life at all. So I want to be I don't want to be inaccessible, but I don't want to get in the way.
Right. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, so I'm constantly trying to kind of learn more about the scouting world, and both as a scout and a scout writer. And it was recommended to me, and I'm working through $sign on the muscle. Do you have any other ideas, like things people should check out if they want to understand what more goes into player evals, no matter which side you're on?
I mean, the problem is there's nothing, it's changed so much even in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
That it's really hard to recommend anything that isn't already out of date. I mean, that's one of the classics, and Prophet of the Sandlots is another one.
I'm writing these down because going to Audible right after this to find them.
Oh, there you go. But the problem is, like, if you said to me, Keith, write a book about scouting, I mean, I'm not even sure I could really do it because what the teams are doing, a lot of it is opaque to us on the outside, even to me as somebody who covers it. I don't know everything they're doing. I have some ideas. I can infer a lot of it from all of these conversations I have that go into the top 100 and the top 20s, et cetera. They're mentioning things about players. Oh, he's got great force plates measurements. The hell is a force plate measurement? This was a couple of years ago. Now people talk about that a lot more, but that's how that stuff sort of trickles out because somebody will score particularly well or particularly poorly in some new measurement. And it'll get out to me or to JJ and the guys at Baseball America or somebody. And then we learn more about it and then it trickles out into the public. But the point is that there's a lot that's behind, I'm pointing at a closed closet door, right? There's a lot in there that I don't see. And so that makes it hard. The fundamentals of scouting are still basically the same. But the advent of all of this data has not only changed how teams are evaluating players, but it has changed to some extent what scouts are looking for, what they're asked to look for. There are a lot of things they don't have to look for as much anymore because he's got great spin on the curveball. Actually, that we can measure. It's nice to know that they line up, right? I have seen plenty of guys who have a high spin breaking ball, and I'm like, it's not that good, actually. Like, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. That's not the be all and end all, but those are things we can measure. And trust me, if I had what the teams had, I probably would never bring a radar gun to a pro game again, because they can often just log into the system at almost every minor league ballpark and get accurate velocity. And now they're not carrying the radar gun's kind of annoying and heavy, and generally so got that in one hand and the pen in the other hand and the stopwatch somewhere else. Like, I'm a mess. Yeah. So I wouldn't mind, having stuff like that. I do think that's one way where it's made scouts' jobs a little bit easier. But there's still a lot. I'm obviously very pro scouting, and think there's a lot of value that they can add for teams that are willing to pay a pittance to maintain a pro scouting staff.
Why is it important to have a person there to see what's going on rather than just relying on other means?
Data and video. I have access to some video through a couple of places, and it drives me nuts because often the angles are wrong and you don't see the whole field, right? It's like watching a movie, but you can only see the bottom right corner of the screen, right? There's all this other stuff happening. I guess maybe it'd be better to say you can only see like the middle portion of the screen, but everything that's happening around it is there for a reason. And when you're at a game, you're not just watching one pitch and the ball in play. You're watching all the interactions of multiple fielders and maybe who should have gotten that ball but didn't. Well, what was his break like? Well, the camera didn't get there in time to see what the fielder's first step was, for example. And yet, if you could give me a video feed of every game from behind the plate, which would let me see pitch movement, for example, or how hitters are reacting, what I see a little bit of what they see, just have a little more time than they do, and what's their first movement, how and when are they reacting? It's easier to see from that position. But then you see, right, you're just sort of slicing right up the middle of the field, and everything that's happening to the corners is kind of out of the view of the camera. So, to me, that doing it on video, like, I love having the video because my eyes aren't that fast. I like being able to rewind and slow down and go frame by frame, but you do miss the whole story. You want to see everything that's happening on the field. It's a whole flow on every play. And I just think you lose so much information. And a lot of which is, part of the value of scouts, particularly scouts who have experience, is they know stuff without knowing stuff. This reminds me of some other player, or this just reminds me of something. Sometimes I see a player, especially scouts will see a player. It's like, I just like him. Somebody said to me last year about a particular prospect, he's hitterish. And I don't necessarily love that word, but at the same time, like, I got what he was talking about. He's like, I've seen lots of players like this and they generally end up hitting. Okay, that's information to me. It's not data, but it's still information. And I want to have that. And you get that by going to the games, going to multiple games and watching a guy over a period of time.
We are going to take our first break. And when we come back, we'll talk about Walker Jenkins and other Twins minor leaguers and where Keith ranks them.
The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. And here's how it works. You pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections. And if you win, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. I almost said 100, 1,000. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes needs to throw for 1 yard for you to win. Yeah, I think he's probably going to do that, but got to watch to find out. Pair that with one more correct pick and you are cashing out. So if you're looking at Travis Kelce more or less on receiving yards or more or less on either quarterback's passing yards, that's pretty much it. And you get fast and safe withdrawal. So when you win, you have cash in your account in as few as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tab and you can tail any of the super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly after you play your first lineup. That's PrizePicks. Run your game.
Locked on Twins, we're back with Keith Law. We've been talking about scouting in general and what they do and how they do it and why it's important. And now we're going to discuss a little bit more in depth about the Twins. Walker Jenkins is the top Twins prospect, and you in the Athletic compare him, and I'm sure you don't do these comps easily or lightly, but Larry Walker compares to Walker Jenkins in some ways. And you list Walker and Emmanuel Rodriguez and Charlie Soto as potential superstars someday. That's pretty high praise. Starting with Walker, why is he kind of like Larry Walker in some ways?
And you're right. I just don't do a lot of comparisons because I tend to, for the same reason I don't do individual tool grades for every tool on every player, because people get very locked in.
Fixated, but locked in is very topical. We like that.
Yes, it's called anchoring bias, right? If I just tell you that one thing, people they get very fit. Oh, he's just like this guy. No, I'm saying that it's a general feeling, but every player is individual. Every player is different, and so in the case of Walker Jenkins, it also occurred to me, it's like, what's his freaking name, right? Like, of course, people are thinking that. The problem is it fits reasonably well. There are a lot of similarities in his physical build and his skill set. It's a super athletic right fielder with a really pretty swing who's already got power, going to come into more, has good feel for the strike zone. I mean, this guy's, and by the way, has been hurt a lot. So even extends that far.
Classic Twins prospect too.
Yes. I mean, it's a lot of that. With Rodriguez too, obviously, but when Walker Jenkins plays, he rakes and he looks like the best player on the field, and he looks like he should be. He's too good for this level. Bump him up. No, he's too good for this level too. Like, he just looks so advanced, and the best prospects do look like that. Right? Look at what teenage prospects were doing in low A last year. And there's a lot of them because we don't have short season anymore. Most of them are not good. I don't want to say terrible because you've got to take their age into account. But you didn't see a lot of 400 slugging percentages from teenage prospects in low A last year because they're just not strong enough. They're just not ready. And then Walker Jenkins just kind of walks in and is just like, boom, 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 and just works his way. I mean, he just blew it up. So he's just so good at such a young age. And that is the number one marker of a player who's a superstar, right? When I saw Bryce Harper at 15, when I saw Mike Trout at 17 or 18. I actually saw him at 16. Didn't realize he was that good. I thought he was good, but I didn't see Willie Mays or Mickey Mantle. But those guys stand out. The moment Mike Trout got into Pro Bowl, I was like, oops, yep, that was the best player in the draft. We all missed him. So they jump out. And I wonder if Walker Jenkins had just been healthy from day one last year and gotten a full season, would we all be talking about him a little bit differently? Would he be basically right behind Roman Anthony, just at a lower level?
So there's a chance I've seen elsewhere where if the guys in front of him graduate, he could just drift up to the number one spot out of sheer keeping on being himself.
Yes. He's behind Sebastian Walcott, who
okay. Yours, that's a little different.
Yeah, that's right. And not everybody has the same list. I understand.
Yep.
And I love Walcott. Obviously, I had him ranked 2 spots higher. But look, it's entirely possible something goes awry for Walcott this year. And Jenkins has a full healthy year, and I just decided to flip them. They're never going to be far apart. These are two of the best prospects in baseball. It's, if somebody wants to argue that 2 should be 3 and 3 should be 2, I'm not going to fight you. Look, it's really not that great of a distinction. And I think Jenkins is not far behind Walcott. Walcott has a chance to stay on the dirt. He is younger, but he also has a lot of those superstar characteristics where, God, Walcott was 18, started in high A. Remember at the start of the season too, I saw he was in Hickory, and Hickory was low A for a very long time. So it's like, he's 18 in low A. That's fine. And after a couple weeks, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. He's in high A. And unlike Ethan Salas, who I do like as a prospect, who was 18 in high A, Walcott made adjustments very quickly and started hitting so well that they bumped him up to double A as an 18-year-old. So those are the things that they happen to the superstars. They're just so good. They zip through the low minors with that kind of production and just that kind of look.
The injuries that Jenkins and Rodriguez have had so far in their careers, does it look like those are things that just happened, or is there something that they're going to have to work through, or else they're going to develop a reputation for being injury prone?
I think that's true of Rodriguez already. Like, he's a top 10 prospect if he's healthy, if he's consistently healthy, right? It's just everyone's looking at him and saying, this is a top 10 prospect who hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full season. It's a valid criticism, right? I love Emmanuel Rodriguez. I mean, there's one or two other things obviously he needs to work on, but the upside is tremendous. I don't think Jenkins has that tag on him yet, but say that he had another Emmanuel Rodriguez type season this year where he plays, 60 games and 10 rehab games and has to go to the fall league to catch up on some at-bats, which I'd love because I love fall league. But then we'd say, this guy still hasn't played a full season, right? At some point, especially when you're big and physical like that, you think, well, he should be able to hold up for a full season. I don't know if that's really backed by evidence, but we all think that way. So I think that's fair to put that tag on Rodriguez and not on Jenkins.
Do the Twins attract these types more than other teams as far as guys who have trouble staying healthy? Like, is there a chicken and egg scenario here? Like, why? I mean, it's Buxton, Lewis, even now Correa's been getting hurt. But on the prospect side, like, is it just the nature of the beast, or are the Twins abnormally affected by this?
They seem to be unlucky. Because I remember
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. But I mean, neither Buxton nor Lewis had any sort of reputation as being injury prone when they were drafted. Right. And then, I mean, Lewis really hasn't stayed healthy at all. I mean, neither of those guys has. Buxton at least has flashed a lot of the upside when he's been able to stay healthy. Lewis, you got kind of half a good year, and he may still be very good, right? He obviously, once he fixed his swing, he kind of took off, particularly in the power department. But I think there's still some questions about him, even if he does stay healthy. But neither of those guys came into the world, the pro world, with those reputations. Neither did Walker Jenkins. I have no, Manuel Rodriguez was probably signed when he was 10. I have no idea what his reputation may have been. But it's not like they're going at, just like Connor Prelip, for example, who was hurt when they signed him and then got hurt again. Well, no one's surprised by that, right? Lots of those guys, funny, that 2-year run where we had all these top college pitchers who were coming off Tommy John, a bunch of them have had to have a second surgery already. So, but they knew what they were getting into on that one. I don't know. I don't have a more satisfying answer. I don't know any reason. I don't think they scout a certain way. I don't think they're looking for certain player types. It's not like they're going after players who are frail or slight or have histories of injuries. I don't think that's true at all. I mean, a lot of these guys, Walker Jenkins, a big physical guy, and he got hurt.
So they're not breaking these guys, though. It's not some sort of like grand social experiment.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no, and I mean, I don't think it's anything. I think they're, I like their player development guys. I think they do a good job. I think they're frustrated too. Why can't we keep some of these guys on the field? Like with pitchers, we all just accept it more than we should. With hitters, hey, nobody's happy when hitters get hurt because they're not supposed to, right? Unless they have some catastrophic collision or something, or Johnny Farmelo, the Mariners prospect, his knee just buckled making a play in center field and tore his ACL, and that finished his season. And honestly, kept him off the 100 because I got to see how he runs when he comes back. Like that stuff will just happen. When it happens to, what have you named like 4 of their top prospects in the last few years who all had a lot of injury issues? Yep. I think it's just bad luck. I don't have a better answer.
Let's take our last break. And then when we come back, we'll talk more about the overall look and maybe of the Twins organization, and also ask Keith Law what he thinks about certain individuals as well.
Attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. I know, for instance, I went to when the Vikings lost to the Eagles back in the day, the dearly departed Tavares Jackson throwing a pick and then getting basically power bombed into the end zone. Never going to forget that one. And definitely remember that day, about 10 below, people walk into the Metrodome back in the day. I know Keith remembers the Metrodome, and I'll ask him about that in just a second. But the excitement and energy, even in a loss, was just so exciting. And I would love to make, those memories again next season if the Vikings can make the playoffs. But Gametime wants to get you into those games. They have a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I used Gametime to find my tickets to Metallica last fall. Highly recommended. Really fun show. Mammoth was the opener. That's Eddie Van Halen's son Wolfgang doing his thing. And so really fun night at US Bank Stadium. So talking about the Metrodome and US Bank Stadium in one breath. How do you like that one? But yeah, you get the super deal special. You get seat views, panoramic seat views from where you're sitting. You know exactly what you're going to be looking at, whether it's a stage, home plate, center court. You know exactly what you're going to be seeing. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave you peace of mind, or gave me peace of mind in this case. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now I got to jump in here just a sec, Dave. One second. Yes, 1 second, Dave. In 2013, you were in Minnesota on a snowy, chilly night at the Metrodome, and I was actually just a block away at the Star Tribune, so I was kind of jealous of you. But I bet you remember who that pitching matchup was.
Sean Manaea and Tom Wendell.
Yes, great. I thought you'd probably get it. I hate putting people on the spot, but I also love it.
It was a great game. Great game. Really well pitched. One of the best games Manaea pitched that spring too, because he ended up getting hurt. And now what, 10, 11 years later?
Almost 11.
He gets his first real big free agent contract. Yeah, sometimes it takes a while. That, by the way, the Metrodome, I'm sure most of your listeners remember it, but the worst thing about scouting there was the seats were like this. So you'd be pointing the radar gun at the plate like this. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Tom Wendell actually bought a house from a guy I play softball with now. So everything comes full circle. He's living here in the Twin Cities, and I think he's out of the game. So anyway, sorry, Dave.
It's okay. Memories are valuable things. We're with Keith Law, who's from The Athletic, and talking about the Twins farm system. So you can tell that you really like the players at the top of the farm system. You've ranked them ninth, the Twins 19th overall, tier 5. And there's something about the system that leaves you wanting more. I don't even know if you're able to really put into words exactly what that is, other than maybe some depth. Can you, now that we're all published here, what is it about the Twins that it's just kind of in the middle, or in the middle of the middle?
Yeah, I mean, it's depth, and that once you get past, I don't know where I'd put the dividing line, actually. Like you didn't ask, but it's kind of a tough question, right? I mentioned Soto as a guy who could be a superstar. So it's 3 on the top 100, then Soto. There's definitely a little bit of a line there. I'd put sort of the next 3-4 prospects in there. And then once you get to Andrew Morris, honestly, I think there's a pretty big drop off, where you've got the rest of that group is pretty low ceiling, but they're going to contribute in the majors fairly soon, versus some guys who are kind of low probability, but have some ceiling, Kalai Rosario, Connor Prelip, whose probability is low just because he's basically have no history of staying healthy, but he's looked good when he has, or some of these, often injured pitchers, Culpepper and Lewis, Prelip too, who just, who knows what's going to, they were pretty good prospects before they started getting hurt. Now I don't even really know what we have. Their system just kind of thins out. Someone pointed out, I think in the comments under my top 20, they've graduated a lot of guys too. So that happens, right? When it's not even so much trades. They've just graduated a bunch. And when that happens, that also really puts a dent in your system. It's just hard to keep a good system rolling when you graduate 4 or 5 decent prospects in, a 1 to 2 year span. So I think that's hurt them too. A lot of that farm system rankings, I don't use some kind of made up formula. I'm just kind of winging it. And as I wrote up that Twin system, I was like, it's fine. It's fine. It's just fine. It's not better than fine. It's definitely not bad.
We've lost Brandon's video, but we're going to continue as if we haven't. So in case, Brandon, can you hear us?
I'm still here. Yeah. You just can't see me, which is probably what people want in the first place.
Yeah, right. It's not a great loss. So as long as you're still there, it's okay. So that's kind of what I was getting to with your rankings. There's not a huge difference between 19 and 9, say, in rankings, is there? In your farm system?
In the farm systems, there's no, let's not even pretend to some level of precision there. Yeah. And that's part of why I put those tiers in there this year for the first time, was just sort of to underscore that. Is Seattle really better than Boston? That's my 1 and 2. I don't know. I think they are. It's my opinion. And it's really just an opinion. I can't even really back it up. And somebody said Boston's better. Okay, sure. good talk. Like, I don't really like it's not like that. Now, is there a difference between 19 and 9, which I think is what you just said? I might argue there is there, but is there a difference between 19 and 15 in a typical year? Probably not. Could you take any of the teams in any of those different tiers that I drew up, put them all in a cup like dice and shake them out? Sure. I'm not going to argue with any of that. Like, if you want to tell me the Twins have the 14th best system and not the 19th, I am definitely not going to put up a fight over that. They're somewhere in the middle. I feel strongly they don't have a top 10 system. I actually feel pretty strongly they don't have a bottom 10 system. Like, if you wanted to argue with me, they're 22nd. I'd say, nah, it's too low. That doesn't feel right.
Right.
They seem,
yeah, go ahead, Brent.
they seem to end up with a lot of guys who have positional versatility. Are they unusual that way? Because I feel like and maybe this is also because of the injuries, kind of have to protect themselves that way, but very few of their prospects are just one position guys. But that's maybe just me as a Twins type having a narrow view of their farm system.
Well, I think they're not alone, but they very much do try to develop guys that way. And I think some of that is because they have some roots in the Cleveland system, and Cleveland's been doing that for a really long time. Because their idea was Cleveland and Tampa, I would say, are the two clubs that have particularly pioneered that. And now a lot of teams do it.
And they're GMs from the Dodgers too. So, I mean, that's another one.
Yes. The Dodgers do that because Andrew Friedman brought that over from Tampa too, which was, I know when they first started doing it, it was, a combination of, you might have two shortstops on a minor league club who both need some playing time there, but also you create more paths to the big leagues for some of your better prospects, and you help trade value. If other teams can look and say, yeah, that guy's at second now, but I've seen him play third. He can do that. And we need a third baseman more than we need a second baseman. That's real.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing to do with the majority of players when they have an established position. Where I wouldn't do it is you've got this guy where we believe he can play shortstop, but he needs reps. That guy I wouldn't mess around with, right? You let him play short as much as humanly possible. But the guy where it's no doubt he can play short, or the guy where it's no doubt he can't play short, but you're going to just keep it alive just in case. 40 games at short, 60 at third, maybe 30 more at second base. And I think that's basically a full season for most guys. So that makes sense to me. Like, I don't really have any objection to doing that, except in isolated cases. And I do try to highlight that. I'd say, hey, I actually can't think of one this year, but sometimes I do look at a player's fielding line for the year and say, oh, wait a minute, that guy needed more reps at this position, not the other one. Or why the heck is that guy still in center? He's going to hurt himself.
Yeah.
We definitely wanted to ask you about a couple players who have graduated off the list, who were ranked last year and played too much or whatever the circumstances. David Festa, I think you had him, I want to say 8th last year in the Twins group, something like that. Does he have a chance to be, did he give you an impression that maybe he could do that or better this year as far as helping the team be as far as the quality of what he brings to the table?
Yeah, I think I actually don't have my previous year report in front of me, but I feel like I probably said he could be about a 4th starter.
Yeah,
I think that's probably about right. Maybe the ceiling of an average guy. I worry he's going to be a little homer prone. He was a little homer prone last year. It wasn't terribly so. He throws strikes. He misses enough bats. I don't know if there's a wipeout pitch there. He's definitely a big league starter. Like that, I have no doubt. And there's so much value in that right now. Is there a lot of ceiling beyond that? Probably not. He's 25 this year. Not expecting a big change in any of his stuff. Can he just tighten up the command just enough to keep the ball in the park and make himself a number 3 starter? I would say that's a best case scenario. Good number 4, maybe a league average pitcher this year in whatever innings he can provide. It sounds about right based on what I've seen, what he did last year, and also what I had seen from him in the past.
And what about Zebby's home run issues? Are those going to limit him from a full potential?
Yeah, I don't, he's a tough one. I think he was actually on my mid-season list. It's weird, right? Obviously, you've seen him pitch. Everything's it's weird. And I mean, weird is not necessarily bad. If you can repeat it and you don't get hurt, then I'm fine with that, right? Weird can provide a lot of deception. I mean, I've learned over my years, sometimes the most beautiful deliveries actually suck because hitters see it all day. Luke Hochevar, Casey Kelly. Bad combination in Kelly's case of a beautiful delivery and a pretty straight fastball, actually. Turns out hitters really enjoy those. So, a little funk is pretty good. The one saving grace for me in Zebby, like it's too many homers, obviously. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but he wasn't just getting crushed on the fastball, for example. Like when guys come to the big leagues and hitters just destroy the fastball and you're like, oh, he gave up 18 homers and 14 were on the fastball, right? That can be an indicator that there's something wrong with the fastball. He hung some breaking balls last year, and you would like to think with more time and experience, he'll just reduce the rate. Everybody hangs a breaking ball every now and then. It's just how often do you do it? And where do you do it? And, can he work some of that out and be also like a quality fourth starter? Yeah, I think so. I was kind of glad I snuck him on the midseason list because he got called up like 5 minutes later too. I was like, oh no, actually this guy's kind of out of nowhere, but stuff's good enough. Certainly enough to miss bats. And obviously he throws a ton of strikes. It's a pretty good starting point. At worst, those homer prone guys usually end up pretty good bullpen pieces. Not always, but pretty high success rate there. I'd keep him a starter for at least another full year and see what you could do to work that out. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as just saying, all right, it's 4-seamer now, which he throws, mix in a 2-seamer. So they're just not squaring up that pitch as much. But in his case, with the, hang a fewer sliders, maybe that makes the difference. Not to be facile, but it's just, hey, it's an adjustment. And they use a different ball in AAA in the majors than they do in the low minors. And that's an adjustment too. So I would definitely want to give him 25 starts this year and see if it starts to come down. Even if it just comes down over the course of the season, I would consider that tremendous progress.
Brooks Lee's results last year, not a huge sample size, but still not good. Cause for concern or just one of those things?
Yeah, just one of those things. I mean, I'm just looking up exactly what his line, just so I'm not talking out of the air here.
It's I think it's telling that you have to look it up though. Like that's how
it's
little.
Not good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was, another guy who gets hurt a lot too, and didn't as an amateur, right? I feel like he's missed a significant amount of time so far, which stinks. If that guy doesn't hit, we all whiffed. Except maybe Baltimore, because I think Baltimore had some doubts about him in that draft. It's the draft where they took Jackson Holiday anyway. But it was pretty clear they were not taking Brooks Lee. It's like, what the hell do they see that we don't?
Can I bother you about what his defensive home is?
Brooks Lee?
Is it second base?
Yeah. It's not shortstop, if that's what your question is. Okay.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Not. I just
he's got the arm for third.
They've got shortstop-ish guys. Like I don't know if there's any shortstop where you're like, that's a shortstop, at least not again from my very limited purview, but they've got shortstop-ish guys. Like Austin Martin used to play short. He doesn't anymore. And this guy used to play short. It's like, I don't know that I like any of them at short.
Yeah. Austin Martin he probably still could play short if he could throw for it, but his arm, whatever happened to his arm in 2020 in his draft year, I love that kid as a sophomore, and he's never been the same guy post arm injury in the field, and actually a little bit at the plate too. But that's beside the point. Lee has never ever had the agility or the range for shortstop. I always thought third base would work fine for him. They don't really. Who's the incumbent at second base? Am I blanking on someone?
Nobody.
Julien kind of lost the job because
right now it's a mixture of Julien. Right? And Royce Lewis might take some reps over there because Jose Miranda can play third. They got nobody to play first. Like it's a mess.
Yeah. So and obviously if Royce Lewis is healthy, you want to play him. He is a priority guy.
He'll play third.
Just as much. Yes. I think that's probably the best spot for him. He and Lee are priority guys. You build the rest of the lineup around making sure those guys are playing every day when they're healthy and in the big leagues. Julien's he can draw walks. He's okay. He's huge platoon split. Okay against righties, but that's about it. Like
can't hit anything but fastballs either. Last year,
I've never been a big fan. He was that is a classic scout the stat line guy because he drew a ton of walks in the minors, and everyone was like, "Whoa, it's on base skills." I mean, it's not that he doesn't have some of those skills, but he doesn't have the things around it to keep that up. Right? Eventually, hitters are like, pitchers are like, I don't have to worry about this guy. So, he's going to chase a slider down and away all day long. Oh, he's got 20 power and I could pound him in the zone. It's just writing up a Brewers prospect who's basically my size. And it's like, yeah, of course they're going to throw you fastballs in the inner third because you can't do anything with them. So, yeah, your walk rate is not going to hold up at higher levels. And I do think Julien ran into some of that. It's not, he has value on a bench. He ain't the answer at second base. And a world where Lee is the everyday second baseman, Lewis is the everyday third baseman. Okay, I don't actually know like who's healthy enough to be shortstop.
One of us do.
Yes, but I like that lineup for long-term purposes, right? Each of those guys, if each of those guys gives you 500 plate appearances this year at the two positions I just named, even if they don't have great years, I'm very happy with the health and with the experience that they get, with the hope that either or both of them could then have a real big year the following year.
I like it.
Do you have any opinions about Payton Eeles?
Somebody just asked in the comments. He is an awesome story. Like undrafted free agent, came out of indie ball. It's second base only without power.
I said on our recent show, he and McCusker should redo the Schwarzenegger and DeVito twins thing if they both make the big leagues.
I love it. He's going to get to the majors, right? You got to give him some playing time somewhere. Second base only and no power is tough.
That's tough.
He's not Nick Madrigal. I'm not comparing the two, but especially because I use Madrigal because I was right on that one, and I'm going to use that every time I can until I die.
As you should.
Oh my God, the grief I got on that one. But it's the same, like second base only, can get on base, doesn't strike out too much, but there's no power, and the defense isn't great. I mean, all of those things I said are actually true about Eeles too, and just kind of limits how much he can do, but he should get to the big leagues. He should get a little playing time this year. I just didn't put him on the 20 because I don't see any way he can be more than that. It would be awesome if he were. I just don't see it.
Well, we kept Keith a little longer than we thought.
Usually.
We didn't hit our sweet spot as far as time, but we did as far as content. We appreciate Keith staying with us, and read Keith Law at The Athletic, and hopefully people out there enjoyed his insight into who's on the Twins minor league system and how they rank, and also the world of scouting. I could listen to Keith and read him forever.
And if you're crying about the Twins being number 19, get over it.
Could have said it better myself.
Tiers, not Tears.
Oh, jeez.
Really. All right, so for Keith and for Brandon, I'm Dave Brown saying we're going to Casilla tomorrow night. That's as in Alexei Casilla.
You forgot the pleasant good evening, though.
I know. I'm screwing up the endings. I don't know.